The studio was set up like it always was. 2 guest chairs, positioned on opposite sides of the stage, far enough apart that the people sitting in them wouldn't accidentally make eye contact, wouldn't have to acknowledge each other unless they chose to. This was standard protocol for episodes where conflict existed, where boundaries needed to be maintained, where 2 people had come seeking answers but weren't ready to face each other yet. Dr. Phil walked onto the stage to his usual applause. The audience settled. The cameras rolled. He looked at the woman sitting in the chair to his left, then at the man sitting in the chair to his right, both of them staring straight ahead, both of them carefully avoiding looking at each other. "We have 2 very different stories today," Dr. Phil began, his voice calm and measured. "2 people who wrote to us separately, who don't know each other, who have never met, but who both came here seeking the same thing, answers about their past, about where they came from, about the families they never knew. The woman, her name was Rachel, was 38. She wore a simple blouse and jeans, hair pulled back, no jewelry except a thin silver bracelet on her left wrist. She'd been fidgeting with it since she sat down, spinning it around and around. A nervous habit. Something to do with her hands while she waited. The man, Marcus, was 42. Button-down shirt, work boots, calloused hands that suggested manual labor. He sat perfectly still, arms crossed, jaw tight. The kind of stillness that comes from years of practice, from learning how to make yourself small, how to take up as little space as possible. "Rachel," Dr. Phil said, turning to her, "you were adopted at birth. Closed adoption. No information about your biological parents. And you've spent the last 20 years trying to find them. Is that right?" Rachel nodded. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "Yes. I had a good childhood. My adoptive parents loved me. But there's always been this question. Who am I? Where do I come from? I just want to know. Even if they don't want to meet me. Even if they want nothing to do with me. I just need to know." Dr. Phil nodded, then turned to Marcus. "And Marcus, you wrote to us with a different story. You grew up in foster care. Bounced between homes. Never adopted. Aged out of the system at 18. And you've been searching for any biological family for the last 15 years. Correct?" Marcus's voice was rougher, edged with something that sounded like anger but was probably just exhaustion. "Yeah. I don't even know if I have siblings. Parents. Anybody. I just know that somewhere out there, I came from someone. And I'd like to know who." The 2 of them still hadn't looked at each other. Hadn't acknowledged that there was another person on stage with a similar story. They were each locked in their own pain, their own search, their own desperate need for answers. Dr. Phil held up 2 envelopes. White. Standard DNA test results packaging. "Both of you submitted DNA samples to a database. Looking for matches. Looking for family. And something came up. Something that my producers flagged. Something that I need to talk to both of you about." Rachel's hand stopped spinning the bracelet. Marcus uncrossed his arms. Both of them suddenly very, very alert. "Now," Dr. Phil continued carefully, "when we run these tests, we're usually looking for parent matches. Sometimes siblings. What we found here is unusual. And I need you both to understand that what I'm about to tell you will change how you see your story. How you see your search. How you see yourselves." The studio had gone quiet. Even the audience seemed to sense that something significant was happening. Dr. Phil looked at Rachel, then at Marcus, then back at the envelopes in his hands. "Rachel, Marcus, I need to ask you both something before I open these results. Are you prepared for the possibility that the answer you've been searching for might be more complicated than you expected?" Rachel's eyes filled with tears. "I just want to know." Marcus nodded once. Sharp. Definite. "Same." Dr. Phil paused mid-sentence. The studio went completely silent. He set one envelope down. Opened the other. Read silently. His expression changed. Not dramatically. But if you knew him, if you'd watched him navigate thousands of these moments, you could see it. The slight widening of his eyes. The way his jaw tightened. The almost imperceptible shake of his head like he couldn't quite believe what he was reading. He set that envelope down. Picked up the second one. Opened it. Read. And this time, his reaction was visible. He looked up at Rachel. Then at Marcus. Then back at the papers in his hands. "I've been doing this show for a long time," Dr. Phil said slowly. "I've delivered a lot of DNA results. Reunited families. Confirmed suspicions. Provided closure. But what I'm holding right now, this is something I've never seen before." Rachel was crying now. Silent tears running down her face. "Just tell me. Please. Whatever it is. I can handle it." Marcus's stillness had cracked. He was leaning forward now, hands gripping the armrests of his chair. "Who am I related to? Did you find my parents? Siblings? Anything?" Dr. Phil looked at both of them. "Marcus. Rachel. According to these DNA results, you're not strangers. You're siblings. Full biological siblings. Same mother. Same father. You were separated at birth and placed in different systems. You've been searching for family for decades. And you've been sitting 10 feet apart from each other for the last 20 minutes. The world stopped. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. Marcus sat frozen. The audience gasped. Even the camera operators seemed to forget their jobs for a moment. Everyone just staring at these two people who'd been separated for nearly 4 decades and had somehow, impossibly, ended up in the same studio on the same day seeking the same answers. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. "Cut the cameras," Dr. Phil said. Not loudly, but firmly. The red lights went off. The producers looked confused but complied. Dr. Phil set down the envelopes and walked to the center of the stage. Stood between Rachel and Marcus. "I need you both to hear this from me, not from a television show," he said quietly. "Not with cameras rolling. Not with an audience watching. Just person to person. You have each other. The family you've been looking for? You're looking at them. Your sister is sitting right there, Rachel. Your brother is sitting right there, Marcus. And I know this is overwhelming. I know this doesn't feel real. But it is. And you need a moment to process it before we turn this back into a show." Rachel was sobbing. Full body sobs. The kind that come from a place so deep that breathing becomes difficult. Marcus's face had crumpled. This man who'd learned to be still. Who'd learned to take up no space. Who'd survived by being invisible. Was crying. Not quietly. Not controlled. Just crying. Dr. Phil gestured to both of them. "You can sit there if you need to. Or you can stand up. You can stay separate. Or you can go to each other. But whatever you do, do it for you. Not for the show. Not for the audience. For you." For a long moment neither of them moved. Rachel stayed in her chair, face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Marcus stayed in his chair, staring at the floor, tears dripping onto his work boots. And then Rachel stood. Slowly. Like her legs weren't sure they'd hold her. She looked across the stage at Marcus. Really looked at him for the first time. Saw her own eyes looking back at her. Her own nose. Her own chin. Features she'd stared at in mirrors her whole life, wondering where they came from. And there they were. On a stranger. On her brother. "Hi," she whispered. Her voice barely audible. Marcus looked up. Saw her. Saw himself reflected back in ways he'd never seen before. "Hi," he managed. Rachel took a step toward him. Then another. Marcus stood. Neither of them moved quickly. This wasn't a movie moment with dramatic running and hugging. This was slow. Uncertain. Two people who'd been searching their entire lives suddenly faced to face with an answer they hadn't expected. They met in the middle of the stage. Just stood there, looking at each other. Rachel reached out slowly. Touched Marcus's hand. Just his hand. He didn't pull away. Just stood there, this man who'd learned not to expect gentleness, holding his sister's hand for the first time in 38 years. I didn't know, Rachel said. I didn't know you existed. I would have looked for you. I would have. I know, Marcus said, his voice rough. I didn't know either. I thought I was alone. You're not alone. Neither are you. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Dr. Phil stood off to the side, giving them space, letting this moment exist without interference. The producers in the control room were probably losing their minds. They had a show to do, commercial breaks to hit, a schedule to maintain. But Dr. Phil just stood there, hands in his pockets, watching two people who'd been broken by the system find each other in the wreckage. After a few minutes, or maybe it was longer, time had stopped making sense. Dr. Phil quietly said, "Can we bring the cameras back?" Rachel and Marcus looked at each other. Some silent communication passed between them. Then they both nodded. "Turn them back on," Dr. Phil said to the crew. The red lights returned. The audience, who'd been watching in stunned silence, didn't know what had happened during the break. Just knew that something profound had occurred. The two guests who'd been sitting apart were now standing together in the center of the stage, still holding hands. Dr. Phil walked back to his position, picked up the DNA results. "What you're looking at," he said to the audience, "is a miracle. Marcus and Rachel are full biological siblings. They were both placed for adoption at birth. Rachel was adopted. Marcus was not. They both entered the DNA database looking for family. And through a series of circumstances that I still can't fully explain, they both wrote to this show. They both got selected. They both showed up on the same day. And they just found each other." The audience erupted. Not polite applause. Overwhelming emotion. People crying. Standing. A woman in the third row was sobbing into her husband's shoulder. Even the band members looked shaken. Dr. Phil let it happen. Let the room feel what it needed to feel. Then he turned back to Rachel and Marcus. "I have more information. About your biological parents. About what happened. About why you were separated. Do you want to hear it now? Or do you want time to process what you've just learned?" Rachel and Marcus looked at each other again. That same silent communication. Rachel spoke for both of them. "Tell us. We need to know everything." Dr. Phil nodded. "Your biological mother was 17 when she had you. She was not in a position to care for one child, let alone two. She made the impossibly difficult decision to place you both for adoption. Rachel, you were adopted within days. Marcus, you were not. And because this was a closed adoption in a different era, with different rules, there was no mechanism for tracking siblings. No requirement that you be kept together. The system failed you in that way." Marcus's face was hard. "Where is she now? Our mother?" Dr. Phil's expression softened. "She passed away 6 years ago. Cancer. But before she died, she registered with every adoption reunion database she could find. She was looking for you. Both of you. She never stopped looking." Rachel made a sound. Not quite a sob. Not quite a gasp. Something in between. "She looked for us. She never stopped. And she left letters. For both of you. Letters she wrote hoping that someday, somehow, you'd find them. My team has those letters. If you want them. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Marcus, who'd spent 42 years believing he was unwanted, learning he'd been searched for his entire life, broke. Not quietly. Not with dignity. He collapsed into the chair behind him and wept. Rachel knelt beside him, put her arms around this brother she just met, and they cried together. For the mother who'd looked. For the years they'd lost. For the impossible chance that had brought them here. Dr. Phil handed them the letters. 2 envelopes. Worn. Like they'd been held many times. Read many times. Loved many times. Take your time, he said gently. Read them when you're ready. And know that you have resources. Counseling. Support groups for adoptees and foster care survivors. You don't have to navigate this alone anymore. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. 6 months later, Rachel and Marcus sent Dr. Phil a photo. The 2 of them standing in front of their mother's grave. Holding hands. The way siblings should. The letters had told them everything. Their mother's name was Patricia. She'd loved them. She'd had no choice. And she'd spent her entire life hoping they'd forgive her and find each other. They had. Dr. Phil kept that photo on his desk. A reminder that sometimes the answer you're looking for is sitting 10 feet away. That family isn't always about blood, until suddenly it is. That the system breaks people. But sometimes, against all odds, people find their way back to each other anyway. Rachel and Marcus talk every day now. They'll never get back the 38 years they lost. But they have today. And tomorrow. And every day after that. 2 people who thought they were alone. Who searched in the dark for decades. Who walked into the same studio by accident, or fate, or whatever force in the universe occasionally decides to fix what's broken. The DNA results that connected them are framed in both their homes now. Not as proof. As promise. That even when you're separated at birth, even when the system fails you, even when you spend your whole life looking in the wrong direction, sometimes, somehow, you find your way home.